What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so there have been some significant updates when it comes to the future of the campaign of President Joe Biden, Mr. Joseph Robinette Biden. As we all know, up until today, Joe Biden has been very adamant in his belief that he is the best candidate to beat former President Donald John Trump in this year's November presidential election. His defiance could be seen in recent interviews. However, if you have been paying attention to the news, uh, Democratic leaders, Democratic Party gatekeepers, have been very, very nervous about the polling that they have been seeing uh, in uh, not just polls from well-known established polling groups, but also their own internal polling has shown that not only would Joe Biden lose to Donald Trump this November, but he would lose in a manner that would not only see the presidency switch to Republican hands, but potentially down ballot candidates, Democratic candidates, lose to the point where Republicans would take over the presidency and potentially the House and Senate and state legislators in a real Republican red wave. They're using the term apocalyptic to describe the uh, pattern in which Joe Biden's candidacy is floundering. So, key Democratic allies, reportedly Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, have been privately telling the president his time is up as he grapples with a reported COVID diagnosis and a resurgent Donald Trump going from strength to ultra strength following his surviving an assassination attempt. It's also been reported that former President Barack Obama has been urging Joe Biden to reconsider his presidential um, race. And while publicly Biden has vowed he will stay on the ticket, sources, I should say, have been saying that his defiance has been softening, and he is now, quote, a lot more receptive to calls of concerns about his prospects. And reports now are indicating that he could drop out as soon as this weekend. I'm assuming it may be waiting until after the RNC convention commences today. Biden was forced to pull out of a campaign stop in Las Vegas after he tested positive for the coronavirus, and he's experiencing, quote, mild symptoms. Um, it's interesting that this diagnosis came just hours after the president said in an interview that he would bow out only, quote, if doctors came to him and said that he got this problem, quote, that problem. Um, this is the thing, man. The DNC convention, Democratic National Convention, is in less than a month now, about 28, 27 days, something like that. And apparently, because of some rules, the Democrats have to actually formally nominate their candidate. I think it would be in early August, which would be before the convention. So the Democrats have a very limited window as far as getting their candidate now before they're nominated before the convention. And now, if this is true, if these reports are true and Joe Biden is dropping out, then who replaces him? And this is the thing. I guess the strongest candidate would be Gavin Newsom of California. Although I'm not, I'm not totally convinced that he would beat Trump. I think he would do the best. I think it would be a more competitive race. But I sometimes wonder if Gavin Newsom's appeal would be as strong say, blue collar workers as Joe Biden. Although I think Joe Biden's appeal overall is would be, is diminished. I wonder if Gavin Newsom would be strong in certain areas like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, whether he would get enough voters in those particular states. But I do think that he's the strongest of the bunch. Kamala Harris is the logical choice because she's vice president. But when I say logical choice, I mean because she's a step away from the presidency. And it's presumed most of the times now that the vice president is next in line. But in my opinion, she's a horrible candidate. And she could arguably perform worse than Joe Biden in the election for obvious reasons. And another thing, I just don't see Kamala Harris, based upon what I've read about her, I don't see her as a person who would gracefully step aside and make way for another presidential ticket. And I don't see her running with Gavin Newsom as vice president. I could be wrong in that, but they got to figure out something. If these reports are true and President Biden will drop out, they got to get somebody. The Democrats got to pull somebody out of the bullpen, because it's looking mighty bad for the Democrats right now. I spoke about this a week and a half ago. I had people say I didn't know what I was talking about. I blocked the guy. Said I didn't know. I don't know. You don't know what you're talking about, too, Raw. You just stick the basketball, which I found very offensive. But I warned then that there were various states that were in trouble. And what did we see now? We're seeing the same states I pointed out: Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, North Carolina, although Trump won North Carolina last two times, but North Carolina will probably go to Trump. Virginia, which hasn't voted Republican since 2004 on the presidential level, that's in play. New Hampshire, Maine is possibly in play. Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, which has not voted for Republicans since Richard Nixon in 1972, is possibly in play. Colorado, which hasn't voted Republican since Bush in 2004, that's potentially in play. Nevada, if I haven't said that, that's in play. If all these states went to Trump, and that's a big if, Trump is pushing 340, 350 electoral college votes. And if you get a Kamala in there, then, I'm not certain, to be honest with you, if a state like New Jersey doesn't fall into play. New Jersey, which hasn't voted Republican on the presidential level since George H.W. Bush in 1988 against Mike Dukakis, according to polling, she would be vulnerable in a state like that. So this could potentially turn into an electoral landslide that we haven't seen on the Republican side since George H.W. Bush in 1988. But anyway, so what you guys think?